Hello, and welcome. You're listening to part 2 of our journey through the myths of ancient Greece, a timeless world of gods, heroes, and ancient stories whispered across the centuries. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes if you'd like, and let yourself drift as the story gently unfolds. And if you feel like sharing, let us know in the comments where you're listening from. It's always wonderful to see how far these ancient voices travel. Now, let's begin. Triptolem. The great goddess Demeter, who brings fertility to the earth, taught people how to cultivate grain fields. She gave wheat seeds to the young son of the king of Eleusis, Triptolemus, and he was the first to plow the Rarian field near Eleusis 3 times and sow the seeds in the dark earth. The field, blessed by Demeter herself, yielded a rich harvest. On a wonderful chariot drawn by winged serpents, Triptolemus, at Demeter's command, flew over all countries and taught people everywhere how to farm. Triptolemus also visited the distant Scythia, where he stayed with King Lynceus. He taught him agriculture as well. But the proud king of the Scythians wanted to take away Triptolemus's glory as a teacher of agriculture and claim it for himself. Lynch decided to kill the great Triptolemus in his sleep. But Demeter prevented the evil deed from being committed. She decided to punish Lynch for violating the custom of hospitality and raising his hand against her chosen one. When Lynch crept into the room where Triptolemus was sleeping peacefully at night, Demeter turned the king of the Scythians into a wild lynx at the very moment when he raised his dagger over the sleeping man. Lyn, transformed into a lynx, hid in the dark forests, and Triptolemus left the land of the Scythians to travel from country to country in his wonderful chariot, teaching people Demeter's great gift of agriculture. Demeter punished not only the king of the Scythians, Lynch, but also the king of Thessaly, Erysichthon. Erysichthon was arrogant and impious, never honoring the gods with sacrifices. In his impiety, he dared to insolently insult the great goddess Demeter. He decided to cut down a 100-year-old oak tree in Demeter's sacred grove, which was the home of a dryad, Demeter's favorite. Nothing stopped Erysichthon. Even if it were not Demeter's favorite, but the goddess herself, exclaimed the impious man, I will still cut down this oak tree. Erysichthon snatched the axe from his servant's hands and plunged it deep into the tree. A heavy groan sounded from inside the oak, and blood gushed from its bark. The king's servants stood before the oak in shock. One of them dared to stop him, but the enraged Erysichthon killed the servant, exclaiming, This is your reward for your obedience to the gods. Erysichthon cut down the 100-year-old oak tree. With a noise like a groan, the oak tree fell to the ground, and the dryad who lived in it died. Dressed in dark clothes, the dryads of the sacred grove came to the goddess Demeter and begged her to punish Erysichthon, who had killed their dear friend. Demeter was angry. She sent for the goddess of hunger. The dryad she sent quickly rushed to Scythia, to the Caucasus Mountains, in Demeter's chariot drawn by winged serpents. And there, on a barren mountain, she found the goddess of famine, with sunken eyes, pale, with disheveled hair, and rough skin stretched over her bones. The messenger conveyed Demeter's will to the goddess of hunger, and she obeyed Demeter's command. The goddess of hunger appeared in the house of Erysichthon and breathed into him an insatiable hunger that burned all his insides. The more Erysichthon ate, the stronger the pangs of hunger became. He spent all his fortune on all kinds of delicacies, which only aroused in Erysichthon an insatiable, agonizing hunger. Finally, Erysichthon had nothing left but his only daughter. To get money and satisfy his hunger, he sold his daughter into slavery. But his daughter received from the god Poseidon the gift of taking any form, and each time she was freed from those who bought her, sometimes in the form of a bird, sometimes a horse, sometimes a cow. Erichthonius sold his daughter many times, but the money he got from these sales was not enough for him. Hunger tormented him more and more, and his suffering became unbearable. Finally, Erichthonius began to tear his body with his teeth and died in terrible agony. Night, moon, dawn, and sun, slowly riding across the sky in her chariot drawn by black horses, is Nyx, the goddess of night. She covers the earth with her dark veil. Darkness envelops everything around her. Stars crowd around the chariot of the goddess night and pour their uncertain, flickering light onto the earth. These are the young sons of the goddess Dawn, Eos, and Astrea. There are many of them, and they dot the dark night sky. Then a faint glow appeared in the east. It grew stronger and stronger. It was the goddess of the moon, Selene, rising into the sky. Steep horned bulls slowly pulled her chariot across the sky. Calmly and majestically, the goddess moon rides across the sky in her long white robe, with a crescent moon on her headdress. She shines peacefully on the sleeping earth, flooding everything with silvery light. After circling the heavens, the goddess moon descends into the deep grotto of Mount Latma in Caria. There lies the beautiful Endymion, immersed in eternal slumber. Selene loves him. She leans over him, caresses him, and whispers words of love to him. But Endymion, immersed in slumber, does not hear her, which is why Selene is so sad, and why the light she pours onto the earth at night is so sad. Morning is drawing nearer. The goddess moon has long since descended from the sky. The east is brightening slightly. Eos Phoros, the harbinger of dawn, the morning star, is shining brightly in the east. A light breeze is blowing. The east is growing brighter and brighter. The rose-fingered goddess Eos has opened the gates from which the radiant god Helios will soon emerge. Dressed in bright saffron robes and riding on pink wings, the goddess Eos takes flight into the brightening sky, flooded with pink light. The goddess pours dew from a golden vessel onto the earth, and the dew sprinkles the grass and flowers with sparkling drops like diamonds. Everything on earth is fragrant, and aromas waft everywhere. The awakened earth joyfully greets the rising god Helios. The radiant god rides into the sky from the shores of the ocean on a golden chariot drawn by 4 winged horses, forged by the god Hephaestus. The rays of the rising sun illuminate the mountaintops, and they tower as if bathed in fire. The stars flee from the sky at the sight of the sun god, one after another, disappearing into the bosom of the dark night. Helios's chariot rises higher and higher. In a radiant crown and long shining robes, he rides across the sky and pours his life-giving rays onto the earth. giving it light, warmth, and life. Having completed his daily journey, the sun god descends to the sacred waters of the ocean. There, a golden boat awaits him, in which he sails back to the east, to the land of the sun, where his wonderful palace is located. The sun god rests there at night, so that he can rise in his former glory the next day. Phaethon. Based on Ovid's poem, Metamorphoses, only once was the established order of the world disrupted, and the sun god did not rise into the sky to shine upon the people. This is how it happened. The sun god Helios had a son by Clymene, daughter of the sea goddess Thetis, whose name was Phaethon. One day, Phaethon's relative, Epaphus, son of Zeus, the thunderer, mocked him, saying, "I do not believe that you are the son of the radiant Helios. Your mother is lying. You are the son of a mere mortal." Phaethon was enraged, and his face flushed with shame. He ran to his mother, threw himself into her arms, and tearfully complained of the insult. But his mother, stretching, "Oh, son, I swear to you by Helios, who sees and hears us, whom you yourself can see now, that he is your father. May he deprive me of his light if I am lying. Go to him yourself. His palace is not far from us. He will confirm my words to you." Phaethon immediately set off to find his father Helios. He quickly reached Helios's palace, which shone with gold, silver, and precious stones. The entire palace sparkled with all the colors of the rainbow, so wonderfully decorated by the god Hephaestus himself. Phaethon entered the palace and saw Helios sitting on his throne, dressed in purple. But Phaethon could not approach the radiant god. His mortal eyes could not bear the brilliance emanating from Helios's crown. The sun god saw Phaethon and asked him, "What brings you to my palace, my son?" "O light of the world, O father, Helios." "But dare I call you father?" exclaimed Phaethon. "Give me proof that you are my father. Please dispel my doubts." Helios took off his radiant crown, called Phaethon to him, embraced him, and said, "Yes, you are my son. Your mother, Clymene, spoke the truth. And so that you may no longer doubt, ask me for anything you want. And I swear, by the waters of the sacred river Styx, that I will grant your request." No sooner had Helios said this than Phaethon asked to be allowed to drive across the sky in Helios's golden chariot instead of Helios himself. 8. Horror struck the radiant god. "What a mad request you make," exclaimed Helios. "Oh, if only I could break my oath. You ask the impossible, Phaethon, for it is beyond your power. You are mortal. And is this the work of a mortal? Even the immortal gods cannot stand in my chariot. Even the great Zeus himself cannot rule it. And who is more powerful than he? Just think. At first, the road is so steep that even my winged horses can barely climb it. In the middle, it runs so high above the ground that even I am overcome with fear when I look down at the seas and lands spreading out below me. At the end, the road descends so rapidly to the sacred shores of the ocean that without my skilled steering, the chariot will rush headlong down and crash. You think, perhaps, that you will encounter many beautiful things along the way. No, the path is fraught with dangers, horrors, and wild beasts. It is narrow, If you stray to the side, the horns of a fierce bull await you there. The bow of a centaur threatens you. A fierce lion, monstrous scorpions, and crabs. 1. There are many horrors on the path across the sky. Believe me, I do not want to be the cause of your destruction. Oh, if only you could see into my heart with your eyes and see how afraid I am for you. Look around you. Look at the world. How much beauty there is in it. Ask for anything you want. I will not refuse you anything. Only do not ask for this, for you are not asking for a reward, but a terrible punishment. But Phaethon would not listen. Wrapping his arms around Helios's neck, he begged him to grant his request. Very well, I will grant your request. Do not worry, for I have sworn by the waters of the Styx. You will get what you ask for, but I thought you were wiser than that. Helios replied sadly. He led Phaethon to where his chariot stood. Phaethon admired it. It was all glistened and sparkled with multicolored stones. Helios's winged horses, fed with ambrosia and nectar, were brought. The horses were harnessed to the chariot. Rosy-fingered Eos opened the gates of the sun. Helios rubbed Phaeton's face with sacred ointment so that the flames of the sun's rays would not burn him, and placed a sparkling crown on his head. With a sigh full of sadness, Helios gave Phaeton his last instructions. My son, remember my last instructions, and follow them if you can. Do not drive the horses. Hold the reins as tightly as possible. My horses will run on their own. It is difficult to hold them back. You will see the road clearly by the tracks they leave across the sky. Do not rise too high, lest you burn the sky, but do not descend too low, lest you burn the earth. Do not veer off course. Remember, neither to the right nor to the left. Your path is right in the middle, between the serpent and the altar. I entrust everything else to fate, for it alone, I hope. But it is time. Night has already left the sky. Rosy-fingered Eos has already risen. Hold the reins tighter. But perhaps you will change your mind, for it threatens you with destruction. Oh, let me shine on the earth myself. Do not destroy yourself. And grabbed the reins. He rejoices, exults, thanks his father Helios, and hurries on his way. The horses beat their hooves, flames blaze from their nostrils. They easily pick up the chariot and rush through the fog along the steep road to the sky. The chariot is unusually light for horses. Now the horses are already racing across the sky, leaving Helios's usual path and rushing without a road. And Phaeton does not know where the road is. He is unable to control the horses. He looked down from the top of the sky at the earth and turned pale with fear. So far below him it was. His knees trembled. Darkness clouded his eyes. He already regrets persuading his father to let him drive his chariot. What should he do? He has already traveled a long way, but there is still a long way to go. Phaeton cannot control the chariot. He does not know their names, and he does not have the strength to restrain them with the reins. All around him, he sees terrifying heavenly beasts and becomes even more frightened. There is a place in the sky where a monstrous, fearsome scorpion lies sprawled out, and that is where Phaeton's horses are carrying him. The unfortunate young man saw the scorpion covered in dark poison, threatening him with its deadly sting, and maddened with fear, he let go of the reins. The horses, sensing their freedom, rush even faster. They soar up to the stars, then descend and race almost above the earth itself. Helios' sister, the moon goddess Selene, looks on in amazement as her brother's horses race across the sky without a road, uncontrolled by anyone. The flames from the chariot, which had descended close to the ground, engulfed the earth. Large, rich cities perished, entire tribes perished. The forest-covered mountains burned, double-headed Parnassus, shady Cithaeron, green Helicon, the Caucasus Mountains, Tmolus, Ida, Pelion, and Ossa. Smoke envelops everything around. Phaethon cannot see where he is going in the thick smoke. The water in rivers and streams boils. Nymphs weep and hide in terror in deep caves. The Euphrates, Orontes, Alpheus, Eurotas, and other rivers boil. The earth cracks from the heat, and the sun's rays penetrate the gloomy kingdom of Hades. The seas begin to dry up, and the sea gods suffer from the heat. Then the great goddess, Gaia Earth, rose and cried out loudly, "O greatest of gods, Zeus, thunderer, must I perish? Must the kingdom of your brother Poseidon perish? Must all living things perish? Look, Atlas can barely bear the weight of the sky, for the sky and the palaces of the gods may collapse. Will everything return to the primordial chaos? Oh, save what is left from the fire." Zeus heard the plea of the goddess Gaia, waved his right hand menacingly, threw his sparkling lightning bolt, and extinguished the fire with its fire. Zeus smashed the chariot with lightning. Helios's horses scattered in different directions. Fragments of the chariot and Helios's horse harness were scattered across the sky. And Phaethon, with his curls burning on his head, flew through the air like a falling star and fell into the waves of the river Eridanus, far from his homeland. There, the Hesperian nymphs picked up his body and buried it. In deep sorrow, Phaeton's father, Helios, covered his face and did not appear in the blue sky for a whole day. Only the fire illuminated the earth. For a long time, Phaeton's unhappy mother, Clymene, searched for the body of her dead son. Finally, on the banks of the Eridanus, she found not her son's body, but his tomb. The inconsolable mother wept bitterly over her son's tomb, and Clymene's daughters, the Heliades, mourned their dead brother with her. Their grief was boundless. The great gods turned the weeping Heliades into poplar trees. The poplar Heliades stand bent over the Eridanus, and their tears of resin fall into the cold water. The resin hardens and turns into transparent amber. His friend Cygnus also mourned the death of Phaeton. His lamentations carried far along the banks of the Eridanus. Seeing Cygnus's inconsolable grief, the gods turned him into a snow-white swan. Since then, the swan Cygnus has lived on the water, in rivers and wide, bright lakes. He is afraid of fire, which destroyed his friend Phaeton. Dionysus. Dionysus is the god of winemaking, the god of wine, a foreign god in Greece, brought from Thrace. The celebrations in honor of Dionysus were important because they marked the beginning of theatrical performances in Athens. During the celebrations in Athens, the great Dionysia, Choirs of singers dressed in goat skins performed special hymns called dithyrambs. The lead singer would begin, and the choir would respond. The singing was accompanied by dancing. These dithyrambs gave rise to tragedy. The word itself can be explained as Song of the Goats. At rural festivals in honor of Dionysus, comic songs were performed, which were also started by a lead singer. They were also accompanied by dancing. Comedy originated from them. The birth and upbringing of Dionysus. Zeus, the thunderer, loved the beautiful Semele, daughter of Cadmus, king of Thebes. Once he promised to grant her any request, whatever it might be, and swore to her by the unbreakable oath of the gods, by the sacred waters of the underground river Styx. But the great goddess Hera hated Semele and wanted to destroy her. She said to Semele, "Ask Zeus to appear to you in all the glory of the Thunderer, king of Olympus. If he truly loves you, he will not refuse this request." Hera convinced Semele, and she asked Zeus to grant her this request. Zeus could not refuse Semele anything, for he had sworn by the waters of the Styx. The Thunderer appeared to her in all his glory as king of gods and men, in all the splendor of his glory. Bright lightning flashed in Zeus's hands. Thunderclaps shook Cadmus's palace. Everything around them burst into flames from Zeus's lightning. Fire engulfed the palace. Everything around them shook and collapsed. Semele fell to the ground in terror, the flames burning her. She saw that there was no salvation for her, that her request, inspired by Hero, had destroyed her. And the dying Semele gave birth to her son Dionysus, a weak child, unable to live. It seemed that he too was doomed to perish in the fire. But how could the son of the great Zeus perish? From all sides, as if by magic, thick green ivy grew from the ground. It covered the unfortunate child with its greenery and saved him from death. Zeus took his rescued son, and since he was still so small and weak that he could not live, Zeus sewed him into his thigh. In the body of his father, Zeus, Dionysus grew strong, and having grown strong, was born a second time from the thigh of the thunderer Zeus. Then the king of gods and men called his son, the swift messenger of the gods, Hermes, and ordered him to take little Dionysus to Semele's sister, Ino, and her husband, Athamas, king of Orchomenus, who were to raise him. The goddess Hera was angry with Ino and Athamas for taking in the son of Semele, whom she hated, and decided to punish them. She sent madness upon Athamas. In a fit of madness, Athamas killed his son Learchus. Ino barely managed to escape death with her other son, Melicertes. Her husband chased after her and was already catching up with her. Ahead was a steep, rocky sea coast. Below was the roaring sea, and behind her was her mad husband. There was no escape for Ino. In despair, she threw herself and her son into the sea from the coastal rocks. Ino and Melicertes were taken in by the Nereids. The nurse of Dionysus and her son were transformed into sea deities and have lived in the depths of the sea ever since. Dionysus and his entourage, with a merry crowd of wreath-adorned maenads and satyrs, the cheerful god Dionysus travels throughout the world, from country to country. He walks ahead wearing a wreath of grapes and carrying a thyrsus decorated with ivy in his hands. Around him, young maenads dance and sing and shout. Clumsy satyrs, drunk with wine, leap about with their tails and goat legs. Behind the procession, an old man named Silenus, Dionysus's wise teacher, is carried on a donkey. He is very drunk, barely able to sit on the donkey, leaning on a wineskin lying next to him. The ivy wreath has slipped to one side on his bald head. He rides along, swaying and smiling good-naturedly. Young satyrs walk beside the donkey, stepping carefully and gently, supporting the old man so that he does not fall. To the sounds of flutes, pipes, and timpani, the noisy procession moves merrily through the mountains, among shady forests, and across green meadows. Dionysus Bacchus walks cheerfully across the land, conquering everything with his power. He teaches people to grow grapes and make wine from their heavy, ripe bunches. Lycurgus. Not everywhere is Dionysus's power recognized. He often encounters resistance. He often has to conquer countries and cities by force. But who can fight against the great god, the son of Zeus? He severely punishes those who oppose him, who do not want to recognize and honor him as a god. Dionysus was first persecuted in Thrace. When he was merrily feasting and dancing with his companions, the Maenads, in a shady valley, intoxicated with wine, to the sounds of music and singing. Then the cruel king of the Edonians, Lycurgus, attacked him. The Maenads fled in terror, throwing Dionysus's sacred vessels to the ground. Even Dionysus himself fled. Escaping Lycurgus's persecution, he threw himself into the sea, where the goddess Thetis hid him. Dionysus's father, Zeus the Thunderer, severely punished Lycurgus for daring to insult the young god. Zeus blinded Lycurgus and shortened his life. The Daughters of Minyos. Based on Ovid's poem Metamorphoses, and in Orchomenus in Boeotia, they did not want to immediately recognize the god Dionysus. When the priest of Dionysus Bacchus appeared in Orchomenus and called all the girls and women to the forests and mountains for a joyful celebration in honor of the god of wine, the three daughters of King Minyas did not go to the celebration. They did not want to recognize Dionysus as a god. All the women of Orchomenus left the city for the shady forests, where they honored the great god with singing and dancing. Entwined with ivy, with thyrsus in their hands, they ran around the mountains with loud cries like Maenads and praised Dionysus. But the daughters of King Orchomenus sat at home, calmly spinning and weaving. They did not want to hear anything about the god Dionysus. Evening came, the sun set, and the king's daughters still did not stop working, hurrying to finish it at all costs. Suddenly, a miracle appeared before their eyes. The sounds of drums and flutes rang out in the palace. The threads of yarn turned into grapevines, and heavy bunches of grapes hung from them. The looms turned green. They were thickly covered with ivy. The fragrance of myrtle and flowers spread everywhere. The king's daughters looked at this miracle with amazement. Suddenly, throughout the palace, already shrouded in evening twilight, the ominous light of torches flashed. The roar of wild beasts was heard. Lions, panthers, lynxes, and bears appeared in all the rooms of the palace. They ran around the palace with a menacing howl and flashed their eyes fiercely. In horror, the king's daughters tried to hide in the farthest, darkest rooms of the palace so as not to see the glow of the torches and not to hear the roar of the beasts. But it was all in vain. There was nowhere for them to hide. The punishment of the god Dionysus did not end there. The princesses' bodies began to shrink, covered with dark mouse fur, and wings with thin membranes grew in place of their hands. They turned into bats. Since then, they have been hiding from daylight in dark, damp ruins and caves. Thus did Dionysus punish them. Tyrrhenian sea robbers. Based on Homer's hymn and Ovid's poem, Metamorphoses, Dionysus punished the Tyrrhenian sea robbers, not so much for not recognizing him as a god, but for the evil they wanted to inflict on him as a mere mortal, Once upon a time, the young Dionysus stood on the shore of the azure sea. The sea breeze gently played with his dark curls and slightly stirred the folds of the purple cloak that fell from the slender shoulders of the young god. A ship appeared in the distance. It was rapidly approaching the shore. When the ship was close, the sailors, who were Tyrrhenian pirates, saw the beautiful young man on the deserted seashore. They quickly moored, went ashore, seized Dionysus, and took him to the ship. The pirates had no idea that they had captured a god. They rejoiced that such rich booty had fallen into their hands. They were sure that they would get a lot of gold for such a beautiful young man by selling him into slavery. When they got to the ship, the robbers wanted to put Dionysus in heavy chains, but they kept falling off the young god's hands and feet. He just sat there and looked at the robbers with a calm smile. When the helmsman saw that the chains wouldn't stay on the young man's hands, he said to his mates with fear, "Wretched men, what are we doing? Do we want to shackle a god? Look, even our ship can barely hold him. Is he not Zeus himself, silver-eyed Apollo, or Poseidon, the shaker of the earth? No, he does not look like a mortal. He is one of the gods who live on bright Olympus. Release him quickly, put him ashore, lest he summon violent winds and raise a terrible storm on the sea." But the captain replied angrily to the wise helmsman, "Despicable man, look, the wind is favorable. Our ship will quickly carry us across the waves of the boundless sea. We will take care of the young man later. We will sail to Egypt or Cyprus or to the distant land of the Hyperboreans and sell him there. Let the young man look for his friends and brothers there. No, the gods sent him to us." The robbers calmly raised the sails, and the ship set out into the open sea. Suddenly, a miracle happened. Fragrant wine flowed through the ship, and the air was filled with its aroma. The pirates were stunned with amazement. But then grapevines with heavy clusters of grapes turned green on the sails. Dark green ivy entwined the mast. Beautiful fruits appeared everywhere. Garlands of flowers entwined the oars. When the robbers saw all this, they begged the wise helmsman to steer quickly toward the shore. But it was too late. The young man turned into a lion and stood on the deck with a menacing roar, his eyes flashing furiously. A shaggy she-bear appeared on the deck of the ship. She bared her teeth in a terrifying grin. Terrified, the robbers rushed to the stern and gathered around the helmsman. With a huge leap, the lion pounced on the captain and tore him to pieces. Having lost all hope of salvation, the robbers threw themselves one by one into the waves, and Dionysus turned them into dolphins. Dionysus spared the helmsman. He took on his former appearance, and smiling warmly, said to the helmsman, "Do not be afraid. I have come to love you. I am Dionysus, son of Zeus, the thunderer, and Semele, daughter of Cadmus. Icarius. Dionysus rewards people who honor him as a god. This is how he rewarded Icarius in Attica, when he welcomed him hospitably. Dionysus gave him a grapevine, and Icarius was the first to grow grapes in Attica. But Icarius's fate was sad. Once he gave wine to some shepherds, and they, not knowing what intoxication was, decided that Icarius had poisoned them, killed him, and buried his body in the mountains. Icarius's daughter, Erigone, searched for her father for a long time. Finally, with the help of her dog, Maera, she found her father's tomb. In despair, the unfortunate Erigone hanged herself on the very tree under which her father's body lay. Dionysus took Icarius, Erigone, and her dog, Maera, to heaven. Since then, they have been shining in the sky on clear nights. These are the constellations Boötes, Virgo, and Canis Major. Midas. Based on Ovid's poem Metamorphoses, once, the merry Dionysus, accompanied by a noisy crowd of maenads and satyrs, was wandering through the wooded cliffs of Tmolus in Phrygia. Only Silenus was missing from Dionysus's retinue. He had fallen behind, and stumbling at every step, heavily intoxicated, was wandering through the Phrygian fields. The peasants saw him, tied garlands of flowers around him, and took him to King Midas. Midas immediately recognized Dionysus's teacher, welcomed him with honor into his palace, and honored him with lavish feasts for 9 days. On the 10th day, Midas himself took Silenus to the god Dionysus. Dionysus rejoiced when he saw Silenus and allowed Midas, as a reward for the honor he had shown his teacher, to choose any gift he wanted. Then Midas exclaimed, "O great god Dionysus, grant that everything I touch may be turned into pure, shining gold." Dionysus granted Midas's wish. He only regretted that Midas had not chosen a better gift for himself. Midas departed jubilantly. Rejoicing in his gift, he plucked a green branch from an oak tree, and it turned to gold in his hands. He plucked ears of corn from the field, and they turned to gold, with golden grains inside. He plucked an apple, and it turned to gold, as if it came from the garden of the Hesperides. Everything Midas touched immediately turned to gold. When he washed his hands, golden drops of water dripped from them. Midas rejoiced. He arrived at his palace. His servants prepared a rich feast for him, and the happy Midas sat down at the table. It was then that he realized what a terrible gift he had asked of Dionysus. Everything Midas touched turned to gold. The bread, all the dishes, and the wine in his mouth turned to gold. Then Midas realized that he would have to die of hunger. He stretched out his hands to the sky and cried out, have mercy, O Dionysus! Forgive me! I beg you for mercy! Take this gift back!" Dionysus appeared and said to Midas, "Go to the source of the Pactolus, and there, in its waters, wash this gift and your guilt from your body." Midas went to the source of the Pactolus at Dionysus's command and immersed himself in its clear waters. The waters of the Pactolus flowed with gold and washed away the gift Midas had received from Dionysus. Since then, the Pactolus has been a source of gold. Pan. Although the god Pan was one of the oldest gods of Greece, he was of little significance in the Homeric era, and later, until the 2nd century BC. The fact that the god Pan was depicted as half man, half goat, a remnant of totemism, indicates the antiquity of this god. Originally, Pan was the god of the forest, the god of shepherds, and the protector of herds. Even in Arcadia and Argos, where Pan was more revered, he was not included among the Olympian gods. But gradually, the god Pan lost his original character and became the patron god of all nature. The god Pan was often seen among Dionysus's retinue. When the great Pan was born, his mother, the nymph Dryope, looked at her son and fled in horror. He was born with goat legs and horns and a long beard. But his father, Hermes, rejoiced at the birth of his son, took him in his arms, and carried him to the bright Olympus, to the gods. All the gods rejoiced loudly at the birth of Pan, and laughed as they looked at him. The god Pan did not remain to live with the gods on Olympus. He went to the shady forests and mountains. There he grazes his flocks, playing his melodious flute. As soon as the nymphs hear the wonderful sounds of Pan's flute, they rush to him in crowds, surround him. And soon a merry dance moves through the green, secluded valley to the sounds of Pan's music. Pan himself loves to take part in the nymphs' dances. When Pan is in a cheerful mood, a merry noise rises in the forests on the mountain slopes. The nymphs and satyrs frolic merrily together with the boisterous, goat-footed Pan. When the hot noon comes, Pan retreats into the thick forest or a cool grotto and rests there. It is dangerous to disturb Pan at that time. He is quick-tempered, and in his anger, he can send a heavy, oppressive sleep, or he can suddenly appear and frighten the traveler who disturbed him. Finally, he can send panic and terror, such horror that a person rushes headlong without looking where he is going, through forests, over mountains, along the edge of precipices, not noticing that his flight threatens him with imminent death. It happened that Pan instilled such fear in an entire army, and it turned into an uncontrollable flight. One should not anger Pan. When he flares up, he is formidable. But if Pan is not angry, he is merciful and good-natured. He sends many blessings to shepherds. The great Pan, a cheerful participant in the wild dances of the Maenads, and a frequent companion of Dionysus, the god of wine, protects and cherishes the Greek herds. Pan and Syringe. Even the great Pan was not spared by the arrows of golden-winged Eros. He fell in love with the beautiful nymph Syringe. The nymph was proud and rejected the love of all. Like the daughter of Latona, the great Artemis, Syringe loved hunting. Syringa was often mistaken for Artemis. So beautiful was the young nymph in her short clothes, with a quiver on her shoulders and a bow in her hands. She looked exactly like Artemis, except that her bow was made of horn, not gold, like that of the great goddess. Pan once saw Syringa and wanted to approach her. The nymph looked at Pan and fled in fear. Pan barely kept up with her, trying to catch up. But then a river blocked her path. Where could the nymph run? Syringa stretched out her hands to the river and begged the river god to save her. The river god heard the nymph's pleas and turned her into a reed. Pan ran up and wanted to embrace Syringa, but he only embraced the flexible, quietly rustling reed. Pan stands, sighing sadly, and hears in the gentle rustling of the reed the farewell greeting of the beautiful Syringa. Pan cut several reeds and made a sweet-sounding flute out of them, fastening the uneven joints of the reeds with wax. Pan named the flute Syrinx in memory of the nymph. Since then, the great Pan has loved to play the Syrinx flute in the solitude of the forests, filling the surrounding mountains with its gentle sounds. Pan's contest with Apollo. Pan was proud of his flute playing. Once he challenged Apollo himself to a contest. It took place on the slopes of Mount Tmolus. The god of this mountain was the judge. Apollo appeared at the contest in a purple cloak, with a golden lyre in his hands and a laurel wreath on his head. Pan began the contest first. The simple sounds of his shepherd's flute rang out, gently carrying across the slopes of Tmolus. Pan finished. When the echoes of his flute fell silent, Apollo struck the golden strings of his lyre. The majestic sounds of divine music poured forth. All those standing around listened to Apollo's music as if spellbound. The golden strings of the lyre rang out solemnly. All of nature was plunged into deep silence. And amid the silence, a melody full of wondrous beauty flowed in a broad wave. Apollo finished. The last sounds of his lyre died away. The god of Mount Tmolus awarded Apollo the victory. Everyone praised the great god of the lyre. Only Midas did not admire Apollo's playing, but praised Pan's simple playing. Apollo became angry, grabbed Midas by the ears, and pulled them. Since then, Midas has had donkey ears, which he diligently hides under a large turban. And Pan, saddened by his defeat by Apollo, withdrew deeper into the thicket of the forest. There, the sad, gentle sounds of his flute are often heard, and the young nymphs listen to them with love. Heroes. 5 centuries. The poet Hesiod recounts how his contemporaries viewed the origins of humankind and the changing of the ages. In ancient times, everything was better, but life on earth steadily deteriorated, and it was worst during Hesiod's time. This is understandable for Hesiod, a representative of the peasantry, small landowners. In Hesiod's time, class divisions were becoming more pronounced, and the exploitation of the poor by the rich was intensifying, so the poor peasantry really did live poorly under the oppression of the rich large landowners. Of course, even after Hesiod, the life of the poor in Greece did not improve. They were still exploited by the rich. The immortal gods living on bright Olympus created the first human race to be happy. It was a golden age. The god Cronus ruled in heaven at that time. Like the blessed gods, people lived in those days without knowing worry, labor, or sorrow. They did not know infirmity in old age. Their legs and arms were always strong and sturdy. Their painless and happy life was an eternal feast. Death, which came after their long life, was like a peaceful, quiet sleep. They had everything in abundance during their lifetime. The earth itself gave them rich fruits, and they did not have to spend their labor cultivating fields and gardens. Their herds were numerous, and they grazed peacefully on lush pastures. The people of the Golden Age lived serenely. The gods themselves came to them for advice. But the Golden Age on earth came to an end, and no one from that generation remained. After death, the people of the Golden Age became spirits, patrons of new generations. Shrouded in mist, they roamed the earth, protecting truth and punishing evil. This was how Zeus rewarded them after their death. The second human race and the second age were not as happy as the first. It was the Silver Age. The people of the Silver Age were not equal in strength or intelligence to the people of the Golden Age. They grew up unwise in their mothers' homes for 100 years and only left them when they came of age. Their lives were short in adulthood, and since they were foolish, they saw much misfortune and grief in their lives. The people of the Silver Age were rebellious. They did not obey the immortal gods and did not want to burn sacrifices to them on altars. So Zeus, the great son of Cronus, destroyed their race on earth. He was angry with them for not obeying the gods who lived on bright Olympus. Zeus settled them in the gloomy underground kingdom. There they live, knowing neither joy nor sorrow. People also honor them. Father Zeus created the third race and the third age, the Copper Age. It was not like the Silver Age. From the shaft of a spear, Zeus created terrible and mighty men. The people of the Copper Age loved pride and war, which was full of moans. They did not know agriculture and did not eat the fruits of the earth that gardens and fields provide. Zeus gave them enormous height and indestructible strength. Their hearts were indomitable and courageous, and their hands were invincible. Their weapons were forged from copper, their houses were made of copper, and they worked with copper tools. They did not yet know dark iron in those days. The people of the Copper Age destroyed each other with their own hands. They quickly descended into the gloomy kingdom of terrible Hades. No matter how strong they were, Black Death stole them away, and they left the bright light of the sun. As soon as this race descended into the realm of shadows, the great Zeus immediately created a fourth age on the earth that nourishes all, and a new race of humans, more noble, more just, equal to the gods, a race of demigods and heroes. And they all perished in evil wars and terrible bloody battles. Some perished at the seven-gated Thebes, in the land of Cadmus, fighting for the inheritance of Oedipus. Others fell at Troy, where they came for the beautiful Helen, crossing the wide sea in ships. When death took them all, Zeus, the thunderer, settled them at the edge of the earth, far from living people. The demigod heroes live on the islands of the blessed, by the stormy waters of the ocean, leading a happy, carefree life. There, the fertile land gives them fruit 3 times a year, sweet as honey. The last, 5th age, and the human race is iron. It continues on earth even now. Night and day, without ceasing, sorrow and exhausting labor destroy people. The gods send people heavy burdens. True, the gods mix good with evil, but evil is still greater. It reigns everywhere. Children do not honor their parents. Friends are not loyal to each other. Guests find no hospitality. There is no love between brothers. People do not keep their oaths. They do not value truth and goodness. They destroy each other's cities. Violence reigns everywhere. Only pride and power are valued. The goddesses, conscience and justice, have abandoned people. In their white robes, they flew up to high Olympus, to the immortal gods, and people were left with only heavy troubles, and they have no protection from evil. Deucalion and Pandora, the flood. The people of the Copper Age committed many crimes. Arrogant and wicked, they did not obey the Olympian gods. Zeus, the thunderer, was angry with them. Lycaon, king of Lycosura in Arcadia, angered Zeus especially. One day, Zeus came to Lycosura in the guise of a mere mortal. To let the inhabitants know that he was a god, Zeus gave them a sign, and all the inhabitants fell down before him and worshipped him as a god. Only Lycaon refused to give Zeus divine honors and mocked all those who worshipped Zeus. Lycaon decided to test whether Zeus was a god. He killed a hostage who was in his palace, cooked part of his body, roasted part of it, and offered it as a meal to the great thunderer. Zeus was terribly angry. With a thunderbolt, he destroyed Lycaon's palace and turned him into a bloodthirsty wolf. People became more and more wicked, and the great thunderer, Zeus, decided to destroy the entire human race. He decided to send such a heavy downpour to the earth that everything would be flooded. Zeus forbade all winds to blow. Only the moist south wind, Notus, drove dark rain clouds across the sky. The downpour poured down on the earth. The water in the seas and rivers rose higher and higher, flooding everything around. Cities with their walls, houses, and temples disappeared under the water. And even the towers that rose high above the city walls were no longer visible. Gradually, the water covered everything. The forest covered hills and the high mountains. All of Greece disappeared under the raging waves of the sea. The peak of the two-headed Parnassus rose lonely amid the waves. Where farmers had once cultivated their fields, and where vineyards, lush with ripe grapes, had once flourished, fish now swam. And in the forests covered with water, herds of dolphins frolicked. Thus perished the human race of the Copper Age. Only two were saved amid this general destruction: Deucalion, son of Prometheus, and his wife, Pyrrha. On the advice of his father, Prometheus, Deucalion built a huge box, put food supplies in it, and entered it with his wife. For 9 days and nights, Deucalion's box was tossed about by the waves that covered the entire land. Finally, the waves drove it to the twin peaks of Parnassus. The rain sent by Zeus stopped. Deucalion and Pyrrha came out of the box and brought a thank-you offering to Zeus, who saved them from the rough waves. The water receded, and the land reappeared from under the waves, devastated, like a desert. Then Zeus, the ruler of gods and men, sent Hermes, the messenger of the gods, to Deucalion. The messenger of the gods quickly flew over the desolate land, appeared before Deucalion, and said to him, "Zeus, ruler of gods and men, knowing your piety, has commanded you to choose a reward. Express your desire, and his son, Cropa, will fulfill it." Deucalion replied to Hermes, "O great Hermes, I ask only one thing of Zeus. Let him repopulate the earth with people." Swift Hermes rushed back to bright Olympus and conveyed Deucalion's plea to Zeus. The great Zeus commanded Deucalion and Pyrrha to gather stones and throw them over their shoulders without looking back. Deucalion obeyed the command of the mighty thunderer, and from the stones he threw, men were created, and from the stones thrown by his wife, Pyrrha, women were created. Thus, after the flood, the earth was repopulated. It was settled by a new race of people who came from stone, who came Prometheus. The myth of how Prometheus was chained to a rock by order of Zeus is recounted in Aeschylus's tragedy, Prometheus Bound. Aeschylus tells how Zeus, who rules the world as a cruel tyrant, punishes the Titan Prometheus for rebelling against him. The mighty Titan, against Zeus's will, stole fire from Olympus and gave it to humans. He gave them knowledge, taught them agriculture, crafts, shipbuilding, reading, and writing. By doing so, Prometheus made people's lives happier and undermined the power of Zeus and his assistants, the Olympian gods. But Prometheus's main fault was that he refused to reveal to Zeus the secret of who would give birth to a son who would be more powerful than him and overthrow him from his throne. Marks for the words spoken by Prometheus. By the truth of all the gods I hate. And for his reply to Hermes, know well that I would not trade my sorrows for servitude. I would rather be chained to a rock than be a faithful servant of Zeus. Marx says of him, Prometheus is the noblest saint and martyr in the philosophical calendar. A deserted, wild place at the very edge of the earth, in the land of the Scythians. The rugged cliffs rise above the clouds with their pointed peaks. There is no vegetation around. Not a single blade of grass is visible. Everything is bare and gloomy. Dark masses of stones that have broken away from the rocks tower everywhere. The sea roars and crashes, its waves striking the foot of the rocks, and salty spray flies high into the air. The coastal rocks are covered with sea foam. Far beyond the rocks, the snow-capped peaks of the Caucasus Mountains are visible, covered with a light haze. Gradually, menacing clouds cover the distance, hiding the mountain peaks. The clouds rise higher and higher in the sky and cover the sun. Everything around becomes even gloomier. It is a bleak, harsh landscape. No human foot has ever set foot here. It was here, to the edge of the earth, that the servants of Zeus brought the chained Titan, Prometheus, to chain him with indestructible chains to the top of the cliff. The invincible servants of the Thunderer, strength and power, lead Prometheus. Their huge bodies seem to be carved from granite. Their hearts know no pity. Their eyes never shine with compassion. Their faces are as harsh as the rocks that surround them. Sad, with his head bowed low, the god Hephaestus follows them with his heavy hammer. A terrible task awaits him. He must chain his friend Prometheus with his own hands. Deep sorrow for his friend's fate weighs heavily on Hephaestus, but he dares not disobey his father, the Thunderer Zeus. He knows how mercilessly Zeus punishes disobedience. Strength and power have brought Prometheus to the top of the rock and are urging Hephaestus to get to work. Their cruel words make Hephaestus suffer even more for his friend. He reluctantly picks up his huge hammer, but necessity compels him to obey. But strength urges him on. Quick, quick. Take the chains. Chain Prometheus to the rock with mighty blows of your hammer. Your grief for him is in vain, for you grieve for Zeus's enemy. Strength threatens Hephaestus with Zeus's wrath if he does not chain Prometheus so that nothing can free him. Hephaestus chains Prometheus's hands and feet to the rock with unbreakable chains. How he now hates his art. Thanks to it, he must chain his friend to long torment. Zeus's relentless servants watch his work all the time. Strike harder with your hammer. Tighten the chains more tightly. Don't you dare loosen them. Prometheus is cunning. He is skilled at finding a way out of insurmountable obstacles, says Strength. Chain him more tightly. Let him learn here what it means to deceive Zeus. Oh, how cruel words suit your stern appearance, exclaims Hephaestus, setting to work. The rock shudders from the heavy blows of the hammer, and the rumble of mighty blows spreads from one end of the earth to the other. Prometheus is finally chained. But that's not all. He must also be nailed to the rock, piercing his chest with an indestructible steel spike. Hephaestus hesitates. "Oh, Prometheus," he exclaims, "how I grieve to see your torment." "You are hesitating again?" says Strength angrily to Hephaestus. "You are still grieving for Zeus's enemy. Be careful that you do not have to grieve for yourself." Finally, it is over. Everything has been done as Zeus commanded. The Titan is chained, and his chest is pierced by a steel tip. Mocking Prometheus, Strength says to him, "Well, here you can be as arrogant as you want. Be proud as before. Now give the mortals the gifts of the gods that you stole. Let's see if your mortals can help you. You will have to think for yourself how to free yourself from these chains." But Prometheus remains proudly silent. During the entire time that Hephaestus chained him to the rock, he did not utter a single word. Not even a quiet moan escaped him. He gave nothing away about his suffering. Zeus's servants, Strength and Power, left, and with them went the sad Hephaestus. Prometheus remained alone. Now only the sea and the gloomy clouds could hear him. Only now did a heavy groan escape from the pierced chest of the mighty Titan. Only now did he begin to lament his evil fate. Prometheus cried out loudly. His lamentations resounded with inexpressible suffering and sorrow. "O divine ether, and you, swift-moving winds, O sources of rivers, and the incessant roar of the sea waves, O earth, universal mother, O all-seeing sun, circling the whole earth, I call you all as witnesses. Behold what I am enduring. You see what shame I must bear for countless years. Oh, woe, woe! I will groan in torment now, and for many, many centuries. How can I find an end to my suffering? But what am I saying? I knew all that would happen. These torments did not come upon me unexpectedly. I knew that the decrees of formidable fate were inevitable. I must bear these torments. For what? For giving great gifts to mortals. For this I must suffer so unbearably, and I cannot escape these torments. Oh, woe, woe!" But then there was a soft noise, like the flapping of wings, as if the flight of light bodies had stirred the air. From the distant shores of the gray ocean, from a cool grotto, carried by a light breeze, the Oceanids came on a chariot to the rock. They heard the blows of Hephaestus's hammer and Prometheus's moans. Tears clouded the beautiful eyes of the Oceanids when they saw the mighty Titan chained to the rock. He was a relative of the Oceanids. His father, Iapetus, was the brother of their father, Oceanus, and Prometheus's wife, Hesione, was their sister. The Oceanids surrounded the rock. Their grief for Prometheus was deep, but his words, in which he cursed Zeus and all the Olympian gods, frightened them. They feared that Zeus would make the Titan's suffering even worse. The Oceanids did not know why he had been punished in this way. Full of compassion, they asked Prometheus to tell them why Zeus had punished him, what the Titan had done to anger him. Prometheus tells them how he helped Zeus in his battle against the Titans, how he persuaded his mother, Themis, and the great goddess of the earth, Gaia, to side with Zeus. Zeus defeated the Titans and, on Prometheus's advice, cast them into the depths of terrible Tartarus. Zeus took control of the world and shared it with the new Olympian gods, but he did not give power in the world to the Titans who had helped him. Zeus hates the Titans and fears their formidable power. Zeus did not trust Prometheus and hated him. Zeus's hatred grew even stronger when Prometheus began to defend the unfortunate mortals who lived at the time when Cronus ruled, and whom Zeus wanted to destroy. But Prometheus took pity on the people who did not yet possess reason. He did not want them to descend into the gloomy kingdom of Hades. He breathed hope into them, which humans had never known before, and stole divine fear for them, even though he knew what punishment would befall him for this. Fear of a terrible punishment did not deter the proud, mighty Titan from his desire to help humans, nor did the warnings of his wise mother, the great Themis, deter him. The Oceanids listened with awe to Prometheus's story. But then the prophetic old man, Oceanus himself, arrived at the rock in his swift-winged chariot. Oceanus tries to persuade Prometheus to submit to Zeus's authority. Surely he must know that it is futile to fight the victor of the terrible Typhon. Oceanus pities Prometheus. He himself suffers when he sees the torments that Prometheus endures. The wise old man is ready to rush to bright Olympus to beg Zeus to spare the Titan, even if his pleas for him bring the wrath of the Thunderer upon himself. He believes that wise words of defense often soften anger, but all of Oceanus's pleas are in vain, and Prometheus proudly replies, "No, try to save yourself. I fear that compassion will harm you. I will exhaust all the evil that fate has sent me. But you, Ocean, be afraid to provoke Zeus's wrath by pleading for me." "Oh, I see," Ocean replies sadly to Prometheus, "that with these words you are forcing me to return without achieving anything. Believe me, O Prometheus, that it was only concern for your fate and love for you that brought me here." "No, go away. Hurry away from here. Leave me alone," exclaims Prometheus. With pain in his heart, Oceanus leaves Prometheus. He sped away in his winged chariot, while Prometheus continued his story to the Oceanids about what he had done for mankind, how he had benefited them by defying the will of Zeus. In Mount Mosch, on Lemnos, Prometheus stole fire for mankind from the forge of his friend Hephaestus. He taught people the arts, gave them knowledge, taught them arithmetic, reading, and writing. He introduced them to metals, taught them how to extract and process them from the bowels of the earth. Prometheus subdued the wild bull for mortals and put a yoke on it so that people could use the strength of bulls to cultivate their fields. Prometheus harnessed a horse to a chariot and made it obedient to man. The wise Titan built the first ship, equipped it, and set a linen sail on it so that the ship could quickly carry man across the boundless sea. Previously, people did not know medicines, did not know how to treat diseases, and were defenseless against them. But Prometheus revealed to them the power of medicines, and with them they subdued diseases. He taught them everything that alleviates the sorrows of life and makes it happier and more joyful. This angered Zeus, and for this, the Thunderer punished him. But Prometheus will not suffer forever. He knows that evil fate will befall the mighty thunderer. He will not escape his destiny. Prometheus knows that Zeus's kingdom is not eternal. He will be overthrown from the high royal Olympus. The prophetic Titan knows the great secret of how Zeus can escape this evil fate. But he will not reveal this secret to Zeus. No force, no threats, no torments will wrest it from the lips of the proud Prometheus. Prometheus finished his story. The Oceanids listened to him in amazement. They marveled at the great wisdom and indomitable spirit of the mighty Titan who dared to rebel against Zeus, the Thunderer. Horror seized them again when they heard what fate Prometheus threatened Zeus with. They knew that if these threats reached Olympus, the Thunderer would stop at nothing to learn the fateful secret. With tears in their eyes, the Oceanids looked at Prometheus, shaken by the thought of the inevitability of the harsh decrees of fate. A deep silence fell upon the rock, broken only by the incessant sound of the sea. Suddenly, a faint, barely audible moan of grief and pain was heard in the distance. Then it came again from the rock. The moan grew closer and louder, pursued by a huge gadfly sent by Hera, covered in blood and foam. The unfortunate Io, daughter of the river god Inachus, the first king of Argolis, rushed in a frenzied, mad dash, transformed into a cow. Exhausted, weakened by her wanderings, tormented by the gadfly's sting, Io stopped in front of the chained Prometheus. Moaning loudly, she recounts what she has had to endure and prays to the prophetic Titan. "O Prometheus, here, at the end of my wanderings, tell me, I beg you, when will my torments end? When will I finally find peace?" "Oh, believe me, Io," Prometheus replied. "It is better for you not to know this than to know. You will travel through many countries and encounter many horrors on your way. Your difficult journey lies through the land of the Scythians, through the high, snowy Caucasus, through the land of the Amazons to the Bosporus Strait, which will be named after you when you cross it. You will then wander through Asia for a long time. You will pass by the land where the deadly Gorgons live. Snakes writhe and hiss on their heads instead of hair. Beware of them. Beware of the griffins and the one-eyed Arimaspi. You will meet them on your way. Finally, you will reach the Biblin Mountains, from which the Nile pours its bountiful waters. There, in the land irrigated by the Nile, at its mouth, you will finally find peace. There Zeus will restore your former beautiful form, and you will give birth to a son, Epiphus. He will rule over all of Egypt and will be the progenitor of a glorious generation of heroes. From this lineage will come the mortal who will free me from my bonds. This is what my mother, the prophetic Themis, told me about your fate, Io." Io cried out loudly, "Oh, woe, woe! Oh, how much suffering does evil fate still have in store for me? My heart trembles in my chest with horror. Madness takes hold of me again. The fiery sting pierces my tormented body once more, and I am again deprived of the gift of speech. Oh, woe, woe!" Rolling her eyes madly, Io rushed away from the rock in a frenzied run. As if caught up in a whirlwind, she rushed into the distance. The gadfly followed her with a loud buzzing, and its sting burned the unfortunate Io like fire. She disappeared in a cloud of dust from the eyes of Prometheus and the Oceanids. Io's cries grew fainter and fainter as they reached the rock, and finally died away in the distance, like a quiet moan of grief. Prometheus and the Oceanids were silent, mourning the unfortunate Io. But then Prometheus exclaimed angrily, "No matter how much you torment me, Thunderer Zeus, the day will come when you too will be reduced to nothingness. You will lose your kingdom and be cast into darkness. Then the curses of your father Cronus will be fulfilled. None of the gods know how to prevent this evil fate from befalling you. Only I know. Now you sit, mighty one, on bright Olympus and hurl thunder and lightning. But they will not help you. They are powerless against inevitable fate. Oh, cast down into the dust, you will learn the difference between power and slavery." Fear clouded the eyes of the Oceanids, and horror drained the color from their beautiful cheeks. Finally, stretching out their hands, white as sea foam, to Prometheus, they cried out, "You fool! How dare you threaten Zeus, king of gods and men? Oh, Prometheus, he will send you even greater torments. Think of your fate. Have pity on yourself." "I am ready for anything, but even the wise bow before the inexorable fate. Listen, Prometheus, this is what will happen to you if you refuse to do what Zeus wants," Hermes tells the Titan. "With a strike of his lightning bolt, he will hurl this rock down into the gloomy abyss with you. There, in a stone dungeon, deprived of sunlight for many, many centuries, you will be tormented in deep darkness. Centuries will pass, and Zeus will lift you out of the abyss into the light again. But he will not lift you up for joy. Every day, an eagle sent by Zeus will fly in and tear at your liver with its sharp claws and beak. It will grow back again and again, and your suffering will become more and more terrible. Thus, you will hang on the rock until another agrees to voluntarily descend in your place to the gloomy kingdom of Hades. Think, Prometheus, would it not be better to submit to Zeus? For you know that Zeus never threatens in vain." The proud Titan remained unyielding. Could anything frighten his heart? Suddenly the earth shook. Everything around him trembled. Deafening thunderclaps rang out, and lightning flashed with unbearable light. A black whirlwind raged furiously. Like huge mountains, foamy waves rose up from the sea. The rock shook. Amidst the roar of the storm, amidst the thunder and rumbling of the earthquake, Prometheus let out a terrible cry. "Oh, what a blow Zeus has dealt me to strike terror into my heart. Oh, revered mother, Themis. Oh, ether, shining light upon all. Behold how unjustly Zeus punishes me." With a terrible crash, the rock with Prometheus chained to it fell into an immeasurable abyss, into eternal darkness. Centuries passed, and Zeus once again raised Prometheus from darkness into light. But his suffering did not end. It became even heavier. Once again, he lies stretched out on a high rock, chained to it, bound in chains. The scorching rays of the sun burn his body. Storms rage above him. Rain and hail lash his emaciated body. And in winter, snowflakes fall on Prometheus, and the freezing cold binds his limbs. And these torments are not enough. Every day, a huge eagle flies to the rock, flapping its mighty wings. It sits on Prometheus's chest and tears at it with its sharp, steel-like claws. The eagle tears the Titan's liver with its beak. Blood flows in streams and stains the rock. Black clots of blood freeze at the foot of the rock. They decompose in the sun and infect the air around them with an unbearable stench. Every morning, the eagle flies in and begins its bloody meal. During the night, the wounds heal, and the liver grows back to provide new food for the eagle during the day. These torments last for years, for centuries. The mighty Titan Prometheus is exhausted, but his proud spirit is not broken by his sufferings. The Titans have long since reconciled with Zeus and submitted to him. They recognized his power, and Zeus freed them from the gloomy Tartarus. Now they, huge and mighty, have come to the edge of the earth, to the rock where Prometheus lies chained. They surrounded his rock and persuaded Prometheus to submit to Zeus. Prometheus's mother, Themis, also came and begged her son to humble his proud spirit and not resist Zeus. She begged her son to have mercy on her, for she was suffering unbearably at the sight of her son's torment. Zeus himself had already forgotten his former anger. Now his power is strong. Nothing can shake it. Nothing frightens him. And he no longer rules as a tyrant. He protects states and upholds laws. He patronizes people and truth among them. Only one thing still troubles the Thunderer, the secret that only Prometheus knows. Zeus is ready to pardon the mighty Titan if Prometheus reveals the fateful secret to him. The time is near when Prometheus's torment will end. The great hero, who is destined to free the Titan from his chains, has already been born and grown to manhood. The unyielding Prometheus still keeps the secret, languishing in torment, but his strength is beginning to fail him. Finally, the great hero who is destined to free Prometheus arrives here, at the edge of the earth during his travels. This hero is Hercules, the strongest of men, mighty as a god. He looks with horror at Prometheus's torment, and compassion overwhelms him. The Titan tells Hercules about his evil fate and prophesies to him what great deeds he is yet to accomplish. Hercules listens attentively to the Titan, but Hercules has not yet seen the full horror of Prometheus's suffering. In the distance, the sound of mighty wings can be heard. It is an eagle flying to its bloody feast. It circles high in the sky above Prometheus, ready to descend upon his chest. Hercules does not allow it to torment Prometheus. He grabbed his bow, took a deadly arrow from his quiver, called on Apollo, the god of archery, to guide the arrow's flight, and released it. The bowstring rang loudly, the arrow soared, and the pierced eagle fell into the stormy sea at the very foot of the cliff. The moment of liberation had come. Swift Hermes came down from high Olympus. He spoke. He spoke kindly to the mighty Prometheus and promised him immediate release if he would reveal the secret of how to avoid Zeus's evil fate. Finally, the mighty Prometheus agreed to reveal the secret to Zeus and said, "Let the Thunderer not marry the sea goddess Thetis, for the goddesses of fate, the prophetic Moirai, have cast such a lot for Thetis. Whoever her husband may be, she will bear him a son who will be more powerful than his father. Let the gods give Thetis in marriage to the hero Peleus, and the son of Thetis and Peleus will be the greatest of the mortal heroes of Greece. Prometheus revealed the great secret, and Heracles broke his chains with his heavy club and tore from his chest the indestructible steel spike that had pinned the Titan to the rock. The Titan rose. Now he was free. His torment was over. Thus was fulfilled his prophecy that a mortal would free him. The Titans greeted Prometheus's liberation with loud, joyful cries. Since then, Prometheus has worn an iron ring on his hand, into which is set a stone from the rock, where he suffered so many centuries of unspeakable torment. Instead of Prometheus, the wise centaur Chiron agreed to descend into the underworld realm of the dead. This freed him from the suffering caused by the incurable wound accidentally inflicted on him by Hercules. Pandora. When Prometheus stole divine fire from mortals, taught them arts and crafts, and gave them knowledge, life on earth became happier. Zeus, angered by Prometheus's actions, punished him severely and sent evil to the earth. He commanded the glorious god Hephaestus to mix earth and water and create from this mixture a beautiful girl who would possess the strength of men, a gentle voice, and eyes like those of the immortal goddesses. Zeus's daughter, Athena Pallas, was to weave beautiful clothes for her. The goddess of love, golden Aphrodite, was to give her irresistible charm. Hermes was to give her a cunning mind and resourcefulness. The gods immediately carried out Zeus's command. Hephaestus made an extraordinarily beautiful girl out of clay. The gods brought her to life. Athena Pallas and the Charites dressed the girl in clothes that shone like the sun and put golden necklaces on her. The Muses placed a wreath of fragrant spring flowers on her lush curls. Hermes put deceitful and flattering words in her mouth. The gods named her Pandora because she received gifts from all of them. Pandora was to bring misfortune to mankind. When this evil for humans was ready, Zeus sent Hermes to take Pandora to Earth to Prometheus's brother, Epimetheus. Wise Prometheus warned his foolish brother many times and advised him not to accept gifts from Zeus, the thunderer. He feared that these gifts would bring grief to humans. But Epimetheus did not heed his wise brother's advice. He was captivated by Pandora's beauty and took her as his wife. Soon, Epimetheus learned how much evil Pandora had brought to people. In Epimetheus's house, there was a large vessel tightly closed with a heavy lid. No one knew what was in this vessel, and no one dared to open it, as everyone knew that it would bring disaster. Curious Pandora secretly removed the lid from the vessel, and the calamities that had once been confined within it spread throughout the earth. Only hope remained at the bottom of the huge vessel. The lid of the vessel slammed shut again, and hope did not fly out of Epimetheus's house. The thunderer Zeus did not want this. People used to live happily, unaware of evil, hard labor, and destructive diseases. Now, myriad disasters spread among people. Now, both the earth and the sea were filled with evil. Uninvited, day and night, evil and disease came to people, bringing suffering with them. They came silently, with inaudible steps, for Zeus had deprived them of the gift of speech. He had made evil and disease mute. Disease, Eke, based on Ovid's poem Metamorphoses. The myth of Eke is particularly interesting in that it clearly expresses a remnant of totemism. The myth tells how the Myrmidons tribe originated from ants. The belief that humans can originate from animals is characteristic of primitive religion. Zeus, the thunderer, kidnapped the beautiful daughter of the river god Asopus and took her to the island of Oenopia, which has since been named after Asopus's daughter, Aegina. On this island, the son of Aegina and Zeus, Aeacus, was born. When Aeacus grew up, matured, and became king of the island of Aegina, no one in all of Greece could match him in love of truth or justice. The great Olympians themselves honored Aeacus and often chose him as judge in their disputes. After his death, Aeacus, like Minos and Rhadamanthus, became a judge in the underworld by the will of the gods. Only the great goddess Hera hated Aeacus. Hera sent a great disaster upon Aeacus's kingdom. A thick fog enveloped the island of Aegina, and this fog lasted for 4 months. Finally, the south wind dispersed it, but the wind did not bring relief from the disaster, but rather destruction with its breath. From the poisonous fog, countless poisonous snakes filled the ponds, springs, and streams of Aegina, poisoning everyone with their venom. A terrible plague began on Aegina. All living things died out on it. Only Aeacus and his sons remained unharmed. In despair, Aeacus raised his hands to the sky and cried out, "O great Zeus, holder of the Aegis, if you were truly the husband of Aegina, if you are truly my father, and are not ashamed of your offspring, then return my people to me, or hide me in the darkness of the grave." Zeus gave Aeacus a sign that he had heard his plea. Lightning flashed, and thunder rolled across the cloudless sky. Aeacus understood that his prayer had been heard. Where Aeacus prayed to his father Zeus, there stood a mighty oak dedicated to the thunderer, and at its roots was an anthill. By chance, Eek's gaze fell on the anthill, full of thousands of industrious ants. Eek watched for a long time as the ants bustled about and built their ant city, and said, "O gracious father, Zeus, give me as many industrious citizens as there are ants in this anthill." No sooner had Eek spoken these words than the oak tree rustled its mighty branches in the complete absence of wind. Zeus sent Eek another sign. Night fell. Eek had a wonderful dream. He saw the sacred oak tree of Zeus, its branches covered with countless ants. The branches of the oak tree swayed, and the ants fell from them like rain. Falling to the ground, the ants grew larger and larger. Then they stood up, straightened themselves, lost their dark color and thinness, and gradually turned into people. Aeacus woke up. He did not believe in the prophetic dream. He even complained to the gods that they did not send him help. Suddenly, there was a loud noise. Aeacus heard footsteps and human voices, which he had not heard for a long time. "Is this a dream?" he thought. Suddenly, his son Telamon ran in, rushed to his father, and said joyfully, "Come out quickly, father. You will see a great miracle that you did not expect." Aeacus came out of his room and saw alive the people he had seen in his dream. The people who had previously been ants proclaimed Aeacus king, and he named them Myrmidons. Thus, Aegina was repopulated. The Danaids based mainly on Aeschylus's tragedy, The Suppliants. The son of Zeus and Io, Epiphus, had a son named Bel, who had 2 sons, Egypt and Danaus. Egypt ruled the entire country irrigated by the fertile Nile, and the country was named after him. Danaus ruled in Libya. The gods gave Egypt 50 sons. Danaus was given 50 beautiful daughters. The Danaids captivated the sons of Egypt with their beauty, and they wanted to marry the beautiful girls. But Danaus and the Danaids refused them. The sons of Egypt gathered a large army and went to war against Danaus. Danaus was defeated by his nephews and had to give up his kingdom and flee. With the help of the goddess Athena Pallas, Danaus built the first 50-oared ship and set sail with his daughters into the boundless, ever-roaring sea. Danaus's ship sailed long across the waves and finally arrived at the island of Rhodes. Here, Danaus stopped. He went ashore with his daughters, founded a sanctuary to his patron goddess Athena, and brought her rich offerings. Danaus did not remain on Rhodes. Fearing persecution by the sons of Egypt, he sailed further with his daughters to the shores of Greece, to Argolis, the homeland of his ancestor Io. Zeus himself guarded the ship during the dangerous voyage across the boundless sea. After a long journey, the ship landed on the fertile shores of Argolis. Here, Danae and the Danaids hoped to find protection and salvation from their hated marriage to the sons of Egypt. Under the guise of begging for protection, with olive branches in their hands, the Danaids went ashore. No one was visible on the shore. Finally, a cloud of dust appeared in the distance. It was approaching quickly. Now, in the cloud of dust, the glint of shields, helmets, and spears could be seen. The noise of the wheels of war chariots could be heard. It was the army of the king of Argolis, Pelasgus, son of Pelecton. Informed of the ship's arrival, Pelasgus came to the seashore with his army. He did not meet an enemy there, but the old man Danaus and his 50 beautiful daughters. They met him with branches in their hands, begging for protection, stretching out their hands to him, their eyes full of tears. Danaus's beautiful daughters beg him to help them against the proud sons of Egypt. In the name of Zeus, the mighty protector of those who pray, the Danaids implore Pelasgus not to betray them. For they are no strangers in Argolis. It is the homeland of their ancestor Io. Pelasgus is still hesitant. He is afraid of war with the powerful rulers of Egypt. What should he do? But he fears even more the wrath of Zeus. If, by breaking his laws, he repels those who pray to him in the name of the Thunderer for protection. Finally, Pelasgus advises Danae to go to Argos himself and place olive branches on the altar of the gods as a sign of supplication for protection. He himself decides to gather the people and ask their advice. Pelasgus promises the Danaids that he will make every effort to convince the citizens of Argos to grant them protection. Pelasgus leaves. The Danaids anxiously await the decision of the popular assembly. They know how indomitable the sons of Egypt are, how formidable they are in battle. They know what threatens them if the ships of the Egyptians land on the coast of Argolis. What will they, defenseless maidens, do if the inhabitants of Argos deprive them of shelter and help? Misfortune is already near, messenger of the sons of Egypt threatening him with war. The decision to protect Danaus and his daughters brought ruin to Pelasgus and the inhabitants of Argolis. Defeated in a bloody battle, Pelasgus was forced to flee to the northernmost part of his vast domain. Danaus was elected king of Argos, but in order to buy peace from the sons of Egypt, he still had to give them his beautiful daughters as wives. The sons of Egypt celebrated their wedding with the Danaids in grand style. They did not know what fate this marriage would bring them. The noisy wedding feast ended. The wedding hymns fell silent. The wedding torches went out, and the darkness of night enveloped Argos. A deep silence reigned in the sleeping city. Suddenly, a heavy death rattle broke the silence, followed by another and another. The Danaids had committed a terrible crime under cover of night. With daggers given to them by their father Danaus, they stabbed their husbands as soon as sleep closed their eyes. Thus, the sons of Egypt died a terrible death. Only one of them was saved, the beautiful Lynceus. Danai's young daughter, Hypermnestra, took pity on him. She was unable to pierce her husband's chest with a dagger. She woke him up and secretly led him out of the palace. Danaus flew into a rage when he learned that Hypermnestra had disobeyed his command. Danaus chained his daughter in heavy chains and threw her into prison. The council of elders of Argos gathered to judge Hypermnestra for disobeying her father. Danaus wanted to put his daughter to death. But the goddess of love herself, golden Aphrodite, appeared at the trial. She defended Hypermnestra and saved her from cruel punishment. The compassionate, loving daughter of Danaus became the wife of Lynceus. The gods blessed this marriage with numerous offspring of great heroes. Hercules himself, the immortal hero of Greece, belonged to the family of Lynceus. Zeus did not want the death of the other Danaids. By Zeus's command, Athena and Hermes cleansed the Danaids of the stain of spilled blood. King Danaus organized great games in honor of the Olympian gods. The winners of these games received Danaus's daughters as wives as a reward. But the Danaids still did not escape punishment for their evil deeds. They bear it after their death in the gloomy kingdom of Hades. The Danaids must fill a huge vessel with water that has no bottom. They carry water forever, drawing it from an underground river and pouring it into the vessel. Just when it seems that the vessel is full, the water flows out of it, and it is empty again. The Danaids resume their work, carrying water again and pouring it into the bottomless vessel. Their fruitless work continues endlessly. Thank you for listening. I hope these stories brought you a sense of peace, wonder, and maybe a few dreams of Olympus. If you'd like to continue this journey through the myths of ancient Greece, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Wishing you a restful night. Until next time.